Hi, Sandra here from Create in Spain, and today I want to talk stamps. I've not got any proprietary stamps whatsoever, absolutely none. And to be honest, I don't see myself using a lot of stamps, but there are some times when you think, okay, if I had a stamp for that, it would either be quicker, easier, more convenient, maybe something that you use an awful lot of. If you're thinking Christmas time, for example, you might be thinking stamps of Christmas trees or snowflakes or something like that. And perhaps if you're talking other times of the year, perhaps you might want to make stamps of sentiments, things of that nature. So I thought I'd find out if I can actually do this with my silver bullet in one way or another. And I set about trying to find something that could be cut that was similar to the Silhouette stamping material. I've not seen the Silhouette stamping material in the flesh, I've just seen it online. But by the time you actually bought it and paid the postage, it's quite expensive. Some people have commented that it's still actually very thin and it's not that easy to get a clean stamp with it. So, do I want to bother buying it? Probably not. So I thought I'd set about trying to find some alternatives. And the first thing I did was have a look through the house to see if I had anything that might be suitable. And I came up with this stuff, which you can see has got some bits cut out of it. And it is shelf liner. It is available just about everywhere. And it has, this particular one has little round circles impressed on one side, but it's completely flat on the other. My thought was, as long as I put it flat side down, I might be okay if I can actually cut it. Well, as you can see, I did manage to cut it. It actually cuts reasonably well if you get the settings just right. I used a 60-degree blade, and I don't remember what pressure setting I used, but I did a couple of cuts, 2 or 3 cuts, so that it was going to be a nice clean edge. It wasn't being forced through the material, but it cut it just fine. And in fact, I've got a little bit here that you might be able to see, which is part of Birthday. When I pulled it off the rest of it, I managed to lose the bee, but it did actually cut it. Now, there are 2 things with this stuff, plus and minus. Well, it's one thing, but it's plus and minus. It is tough. It is durable. It is really good stuff to handle. From that point of view, it's wonderful. The bad thing about it is that it's tough, it's durable, and the reason why. It can be quite difficult to get the little bits out. I mean, as you can see, I've got a pretty small piece, and things like the inside of the letter D. It can be done, and I found the easiest way of doing this, and I'm just going to zoom away for a second. Back again. It's the trusty dental pick. And in order to get these out, because you probably don't want to cut right the way through it because it's going to slip on your mat a bit, is to take, hang on, I've got it here, the little curved end. There's a little hooky bit on the end of this one, and go in the hole, down through the hole, up through the hole, and you can literally pull your little piece of plastic out. If you don't have one of these, then I recommend raiding your sewing cabinet and getting a sharp needle. Only if you can be trusted with sharp tools, of course, and I don't recommend you let little kids do it. But you can actually cut it out. Now, unfortunately, the effect of this stuff is that when you stamp it, you get this. It's not a clear stamp, and that is using the flat side. If I were to turn it over and use the side with circles, I would literally get the impressions of the circles on it. However, having said that, if you want this kind of distressed look, it's actually quite nice. It's not good if you want it for sentiments because they just don't come out. You end up with half the letters missing. But it is quite good for the larger things. This one is about 1.5 inches, 2 inches across. And yeah, it does fine. Not a problem. Now, I wondered to myself, right, what else can I possibly use? And the obvious thing is the fun foam. And here is one I've cut out with fun foam. It cuts it out quite easily. This is about 1.5 millimeter thick, I guess. And it actually is perfectly thick enough for a stamp. It's not a problem. It stamps a nice clean image. And I have some images here that you can see. Perfectly sharp, at least it is where I've actually done it properly. So I don't normally stamp. So on this one, for example, you can see there's a little bit missing at the top. But that's me. That's not the stamp. That's me. That's one I did afterwards where I did it properly. And there we are. What did I use to actually stamp it? All I did was I put on this particular side, because you can see this side's clean, I put some temporary spray adhesive, and I have some large sheets of Perspex, and I got my husband to cut it down for me in a few different sized strips. And all I did was I got a file and I just smoothed the edges a bit. It's not perfect, it's rough and ready, but I don't have an acrylic block. And I went to the craft shop to try and get one, and the only one they had was the tiny one. I thought, if I'm going to buy an acrylic block, I want to buy a bigger one. So I got more options. So I don't have a block. But literally, a little bit of spray adhesive, stick it on there, and paint it up, and off you go. What do I use for painting it up? Well, I have a cosmetic sponge. Doubled it over, and there's a very good reason for this, because if you don't do this you get filthy fingers. And a bulldog clip, there we go, and you can dip it in your paint, your pad or whatever it is you like, and then just go da 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 da, and you're ready to go. What paints did I use? I have used these, which are shimmering ones from Aldi, I think it was, either Aldi or Lidl. They came in a set of 5 or 6. They work perfectly well. They're just acrylic paints. They're liquid acrylic paints. This one here was done with this Monto Nature paint. Again, it's an acrylic paint. This paint can be used indoors, outdoors, on any surface pretty much. So it's pretty good stuff. I also did one, but I can't find the sample. Can't find the sample. No. Here we go. I did some on acetate, and this one here is it's one of these metallic ones. It's a fairly well-known brand, I believe, Deco Art, and I think that was White Pearl. And then this one here on this side, which doesn't show up too well on the camera, but in actual fact, in reality, it's very nice. I just use Reeves Iridescent Medium and sponge that. And this, being acrylic, is pretty good. Now, I don't have any proper stamping inks, and that's why I decided to use my acrylic paints. And to be perfectly honest, I see absolutely no point, if you have acrylic paints, in buying stamping inks, because all I did was got a piece of vinyl backing paper, i.e. basically something nothing's going to stick to, or it could be any scrap of paper, to be honest, that's waterproof. You don't want it going through to your surface. And literally just take one of these, put a splodge on my surface, get my sponge, do that, and off I would go onto my stamp. I'll have to wash that one later. Right, so that's all I do for that. There's nothing technical about it, nothing difficult whatsoever. And it's cheap because, you know, I do a lot of artwork and I've already got all these paints. There's no point in me buying another load of inks and having them dry up because I'm not going to use them enough. So that was that. Now, I thought to myself, well, this is okay because you can do simple cutouts in foam, you can do reasonably large things and background patterns and so on and so forth in foam, but it's not going to be any use for the really fine stuff. I have tried cutting out sentiments in fun foam, and as you can see here, it's not very successful. You either end up with it, I mean, this is a small one, but if I wanted a small one, it wouldn't be very successful. If I wanted a larger one, yeah, fine. If it was something like, I don't know, 1/2 inch and without too many bits coming out in the middle, it would be okay. But for the really delicate stuff, no, it's not going to work, unfortunately. So, the other alternative for doing various foam shapes is a little different, and I'm just going to move this out the way. Move it over to one side. I'm going to bring a little mat in front of here so you can see what I'm doing. And where is it? Okay. This in here is plastilina. You can't see it because the package is broken, but it's called plastilina, and it's by a company called Jovi. No idea who they are, and it is like a plasticine. This is a ball of it. It's nice and clean to use. It's not like clay, so it's nice and clean to use. It doesn't smell like plasticine. It's got virtually no discernible scent, and although it felt really, really hard in the shop when I bought it, as you can see, it's actually quite malleable. So there are some other things that you can do. You can, for example, take an acrylic block and you can take some of this stuff and wind it around into a pattern. Okay, so I've got a little pattern there. And I'm just going to whiz away a sec because I need another block. I've only got one on the table. The only thing that you have to do with this to get a decent stamp is to make sure that all of it is level, that it contacts basically. Now you can make marks in this with whatever you fancy. And I need my paint swatch. Whoa! Just dropped my paint swatch, thank goodness it didn't go anywhere where it shouldn't. Hang on. Get some paint on here. I'll actually show you what it comes out like. Because you can actually paint directly with this moulding stuff, whatever it is. I have no idea what it is. You can actually cover this with paint. And presumably you could use other things as well. I love the texture of this acrylic stuff though, because it, you know, it doesn't run and it covers nicely. And I just need a piece of paper. So take this out the way. What did I drop? Oh heck, no, it's not my dental tool. Something else I dropped. I'm not quite sure what it was. And you can press that on there, lift up, and voila, we have a stamp. Just let me see what I've dropped. I don't know what it was, made a heck of a clattering sound. So you can actually use it like that, and then you can just leave it as it is, run it under the tap, and then blot it dry, and it's fine. You can rework it again. It's quite good stuff. Okay, I think that's it for the time being. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to have to do the next bit in the next video, and I'll be back in a moment.